Well, for the latest of Footy on 9 season previews, it's West Coast. I'm joined again by Nathan Brown. Brownie, this is a team that perhaps didn't live up to its own expectations last year.
No, they at the end of the season was a disaster for the West Coast Eagles. They were 5 goals up against Richmond at the MCG, and they let that slip when the rain came. The following week, they thought they'd get the double chance, lost to Hawthorn at home, so they missed the double chance, and that was it for West Coast Eagles. I think if they had got the double chance, they would have played finals, but 2 games they let slip at the end of the season really cost them.
Well, it was quite the off-season for the Eagles. They did add Tim Kelly, of course, finally getting his wish to head home to Perth, a first-round selection, along with a whole raft of future selections. He really adds to that midfield, doesn't he?
He certainly does. What a player to come in. He's so clean, he's cool, he's just with the footy, he uses it so well. He also kicked goals, he's a great runner. So to be a link player in that midfield, I think he's going to play great footy for him this year.
In terms of what that means and in terms of contending again, do you think that puts them right back up?
I think it does. I think they're contenders again. I think West Coast play top 4 this year. You throw them into that midfield, and don't forget Big Nick Naitanui, who's going to come back into that starting midfield. It is going to be a big team. Josh Kennedy, apparently he's had the best pre-season had in a long time. So West Coast, for me, are going to bounce back hard.
You've got the likes of Elliot Yeo, Luke Shuey in there, probably ball winners. But so how does Tim Kelly fit into that mix, do you think?
I think he rotates through that midfield, probably plays 80% midfield, goes out to a wing. He could even go to half forward, Tim Kelly. The thing with their midfield is they go deep and they've got players who can run and carry and use the ball. But the one thing that I think other clubs get West Coast on is a pace on the outside. Sometimes West Coast can look a little bit one pace through the midfield. Shuey, Kelly, these guys might be one pace, but I tell you what, it's hard to control them when they've got a hell of a lot of the ball like they do, and they use it so very well. That's what sides will be trying to do. They'll be trying to get them on the outside, but they've got to win the footy against West Coast first to be able to do that.
Well, that's the thing. Even harder to control that midfield when you've got Nick Nat fit and putting it down to them. What are the expectations on him? Because he's only played a small amount of footy with those injuries.
Well, I think the expectations are... you wouldn't play him 24 games. I mean, you'd probably play him 5 or 6 games, give him a break. His body is broken down so much. But I don't think there's been a ruckman in the competition in, the last 20 or 30 years that has been so good with his handwork. Yes, he gets up so high, but he's just got this innate ability to know where his players are, where they're running, and to palm it down. Added to that, he doesn't take a lot of marks, Nick Naitanui. That's been the question mark about his game, but I don't think he needs to take a lot of marks. I think he's someone who follows up the ball so much at ground level that people and other players are so worried about him being around the football that he coughs up mistakes from other sides. And I think having him back in that side just changes the dynamic so much.
He certainly looks in much better shape this time than he did last year. Towards the end of the season, he perhaps didn't look at his absolute optimal level. But their forward line, it is a potent forward line. Josh Kennedy and Jack Darling and a whole range of small forwards.
Well, Adam Simpson's already come out and said Josh Kennedy is the fittest he's been in many years, and his body's let him down the last couple of years, hasn't always been out on the park. Jack Darling has been the beneficiary of that. I think Jack Darling's last 24 months has been the best of his career. He kicked 59 goals, 56 goals, something around that mark last year, and had a breakout year. I thought Jack Darling held up really well. With him fit and Kennedy back, I think it's going to be a big forward line. They lose Willie Rioli, who I think is really important to them. They had Cripps and also Ryan, who kicked 30 goals each last year. So they got the small forwards covered, but do they have the pressure down there? Because that's what I thought Rioli brought. He brought enormous forward pressure. They will miss him. But again, it's a potent forward line.
We touched on the forward line. Let's have a look at the defence now. And we know all about this defence. Of course, they're premiers 2 years ago when they beat Collingwood in that grand final. But it is just a really strong right across both lines, isn't it?
It is, but they got to West Coast defence last year. And a lot of clubs now are looking at Jeremy McGovern and how he plays his football. I watched some vision last year of behind the goals when they played Sydney. And the Sydney players did it so well. They never let Jeremy McGovern out on his own. West Coast try and get him free. They try and cover for him so he can sit back in the hole and pretty much play on his own, but impact the side's best tall forwards. Now, the clubs have noticed that, and they've started picking off Jeremy McGovern and making sure somebody goes to him, so there's always someone. And if he can't impact it in the air, West Coast look vulnerable. And there was a few times last year, in the losses they had last year, West Coast, particularly Richmond and Geelong games, they got big scores kicked on them against their big guys. So if you can control Jeremy McGovern, you can control West Coast.
Perhaps some learnings there from the grand final when he started that play that got them that goal for Dom Sheed. Well, now we've run our eye over that team, Brownie. Who's the pressure on, do you think, in 2020?
I think the pressure is on the whole footy club. I think they're such a massive football club in Western Australia, and the way they exited the finals last year will have them concerned. They've brought in Tim Kelly, so they've given up a lot for Tim Kelly. Nick Naitanui, we don't know how well he's going to come back. We hope he comes back well, but there's some pressure around that. Obviously, they've had some issues with Willie Rioli. He won't be playing. So I think the pressure at the moment is on the whole football club. In saying that, I expect them to bounce back well.
Not a whole lot of young talent, I guess, in that group, but who have you got improving?
Well, Oscar Allen, I thought the games he played last year, he showed that he is going to be an elite forward. I love the way he moves. I love the way he attacks the football. He looks like a ready-made, smart, intelligent football, the way he uses the footy. So to throw him in with Kennedy and Darling, probably won't always play, but I think that he is one to watch, and I think he could be a star on the rise.
Well, should that happen, where have you got him?
Top four. I think West Coast bounce back. Top four. They should have been top four last year. They let it slip. The addition of Tim Kelly. I'm going to back Nick Naitanui in to have a massive season. So top four for West Coast.
Brownie, thanks again. For more of those Footy on 9 season previews, wideworldofsports.com.au or 9 Now.